kids, our story for today is about the two brothers. While one was raged of jealousy, ended up in a distinct fate. The title of our story today is Spring and Autumn. Once, there was a princess so beautiful that she was called Dear Delight of the World. Princes, warriors came from near and far to gaze at the princess and offer precious gifts. Each one hoped he could win her as his bride. The princess listened politely to her admirers, but none of them ever stirred her heart. To their dismay, she would silently shake her head and send them away. One day, the Prince of Autumn came to the palace. He was handsome, brave, and so strong that 10 men couldn't lift his sword. When he came before the princess, he bowed low and expressed his love for her, confident that she wouldn't refuse to be his wife. But the princess didn't speak. The Prince of Autumn looked into her dark eyes and saw there was no spark of love there, despite his magnificent figure and noble birth. She shook her head. The Prince of Autumn felt wounded to the heart. Fighting back bitter tears, he turned and walked away. His younger brother, the Prince of Spring, who had accompanied him, was waiting outside in the palace garden. "Did the princess agree to be your wife?" he asked. "No," snapped his brother. "She is too proud. She will never find a better husband than me." The Prince of Spring smiled. "Then I'm going to ask her to marry me tomorrow," he said. His brother stared at him in amazement. "You?" The Prince of Autumn roared with laughter. "Why would the princess marry a boy like you when she wouldn't accept a man like me? You only make a fool of yourself." "I don't care," sighed the Prince of Spring. "I saw her walking here in the palace garden and knew at once that I must ask her to be my wife." "Then let's have a bet," said the Prince of Autumn. "If she says yes, I'll give you a cask of rice wine for your wedding. But if she says nothing, then you must give a cask to me." The Prince of Spring accepted the bet. He went straight home to see his mother and told her about the princess. "Will you help me win her for my wife?" he asked. His mother saw the true love in her son's heart. "You will need a new robe and sandals if you are going to the palace," she said, "and a fine bow and arrows. I will make them for you myself." The Prince of Spring thanked his mother, and that night, as he slept, she went to work. First, she fetched a basket and went out into the garden. By the light of the moon, she filled the basket with curling tendrils from a wisteria tree and long sprays of flower buds. Then she magically wove the wisteria into a robe for her son. When it was done, she made him a pair of sandals from the twining stems and a bow and arrows. In the morning, she gave them all to the Prince of Spring. He was disappointed to see how simple and dull the robe was, but he didn't want to be ungrateful, so he thanked her and put it on. Then he slipped his feet into the sandals and took up the bow and arrows. "Wish me well, mother," he said, and he set off for the palace. When it was his turn to come before the princess, the Prince of Spring bowed humbly, his hopeful heart burning with love. The princess's maids whispered to each other, "How could such a dull-looking boy, dressed in grey, marry the most beautiful princess, dear delight of the world?" they murmured. But when the princess raised her eyes and gazed at the Prince of Spring, the wisteria buds woven into his robe burst into flower. Purple and white blossoms cascaded from his shoulders to his feet, and the whole chamber was filled with its sweet scent. The princess smiled. She rose and offered him her hand. "I will be your wife, my lord, if you will have me," she said. The Prince of Spring rushed to tell his brother the good news. "You owe me a cask of rice wine to drink at my wedding," he said happily. But the Prince of Autumn scowled with jealousy. He refused to give his brother anything. "I wish you both nothing but misery," he thundered. When the Prince of Spring brought the princess home to meet his mother, he told them both about brother's anger. "I'm sorry to hear it," said his mother, But do not be afraid. All will be well for you. With a heavy heart, she left them and went into the garden once more. There, she cut a hollow cane of bamboo and filled it with salt and stones. She wrapped the bamboo with leaves and hung it above the fire. With the fire smoke curling around it, she spoke. As green leaves fade and die, so you must fade and die, my autumn sun. As stone sinks in the sea, so you must sink. As the salt tide ebbs, so you too must ebb away. And once her words were spoken, it was made to be. That is why spring will forever be fresh and merry and young, while autumn is the saddest time of the year. That's it, kids. Remember, never endow yourself with anger or jealousy, but instead, be happy for what others' achievements in life. That's how we acquire joy like spring and not the sorrow of autumn. Bye.